Welcome to the podcast Life After Addiction and Indictment. I'm your host, Steve Cloward, and I spent most of the last decade and well over $100,000 on coaches, consultants, masterminds, and events trying to figure out how to reclaim my life again. On this podcast, I'm going to share the tools, the tips, the tricks, and the hacks that allowed me to forgive myself so that I could reclaim my life again. I'll be interviewing experts in mindset, leadership, entrepreneurship, sales, marketing, branding, and so much more. I'm glad you're here. Sit back and relax and enjoy the show.
Let's go! This is Life After Addiction and Indictment.
Hey folks, welcome back to Life After Addiction and Indictment. Today I've got a gentleman that I have just really met just recently, and I came across his channel after seeing him on a different podcast about 6-7 weeks ago. And so I'm just really honored and grateful for the time that has been set aside by Hans Wilhelm. Hans, thank you so much for being here today.
Steve, it's a pleasure and honor to be on your program. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, you betcha. Well, folks, Hans, he's a mystic. He's a best-selling author and illustrator of over 200 books of all ages. His YouTube channel is phenomenal. He's got incredible artistry. I don't know what you would call it. Your drawing skills, let's put it that way. Yeah. And the way that he draws and sketches as he's talking through the different subjects is just it's really refreshing, and it just really makes it easy to follow and understand, and just some great stuff. So, like I was telling you, Hans, before we started recording, I grew up in a religion and was taught certain things. But as I kind of been really digging more into a spiritual side and trying to grow as a person, and really just try to become my best self and connect to God, source, whatever people want to call it. I've really just come to the awareness that with energy and frequency, that's really what everything boils down to. So whether it's, trying to improve on relationships or business or spirituality, whatever it is, however we can, raise our energy field or vibration, I guess is really what it comes down to. I'll let you speak to that. Is really what helps us really create the life that we really think about and desire. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. You just put the finger on the right button there, because it is all about energy. And you said you grew up in a religious kind of background. Christ already gave us, I think, the most powerful parable, which explains that exactly. You remember the story of the prodigal son, the landlord who let go of one of his sons, wants to have his inheritance, which is energy, to go out into the world to make his own fortune. And of course, he fails bitterly. He wastes all his energy until he lands up, of course, at the rock bottom, hits rock, then he sleeps with the swines, and then he remembers that the servants in his father's home live much better than he does. And then he returns back home, and when the father sees him, father runs to him and embraces him and welcomes him home, and the other son orders him to order a big feast and give him a new coat. This is a basic story of the prodigal son, and it is a most powerful story because it deals exactly with what you have said. It's about energy. We were given as original divine beings. We all were divine beings from the absolute reality, and we have so-called fallen. We call it the fall of angels in the Bible. And we have left that wonderful environment, and on our way back into our ego, we have on the way lost all our energy. We have spent it in the wrong places all the time. So we are all down here on the material universe, which is sort of the lowest frequency, where we are barely surviving with the little energy we still have. And what are we doing? We continuously try to steal, rob, buy, and whatever, cheat other people from their energy, to get their energy, to get a high. And this is basically the basis of addiction, because we are low of energy. So we try to find this energy rush, either to drugs or to love or to sex or to whatever we think will help us over for the next few minutes to feel good again. So it is, as you said, it is all about energy. The fact that we have wasted all our energies and we feel very empty, And we have the illusion that we are separate from God, from our home. And that illusion makes us trying to find the energy in the outside world from our friends, neighbors who are
Drugs, like you said.
Yeah. Instead of going within where the source of energy, where the Father lives, the whole kingdom is in us. And that, I think, eventually, probably many of your listeners who have had addiction and probably with the 12-step program are totally aware of it, that the only way to get out of it is to reconnect with divinity again.
That's so true.
Find the energy.
Wow, the way you described the story of the prodigal son, I mean, that's a perspective I'd never even considered, but it makes so much sense the way that you discussed it, And then as you talk about addiction, I mean, as somebody that was taking opiates for 14 years, and, as I did the work to figure things out, number one, I really couldn't solve the issue without that, number one, knowing what the underlying issue was. And then obviously, that spiritual connection was the biggest key. But as I look back on what those opiates were doing for me, you nailed it. It was because I felt low. Various reasons, obviously, to that I was able to figure out. But that gave me that fake energy, I guess, if you will. That would be the way I would best describe it, because it did make me feel different, And man, that just, again, I had never thought of it that way. And that just makes so much sense. I mean, that's crystal clear to me.
Yeah. And it's not only drugs.
Right.
If I look back into my life, whenever I've done something hurtful to other people, including myself, whether I've been a show-off, whether I've stolen, whether I have insisted on sex, whatever it is, whenever I did something, it was always because I felt low of energy. Now, when we understand it, that we do all our mistakes in life because we feel low on energy, it may be a little bit easier for many of us to learn to forgive ourselves too, for a lot of this stuff, because forgiveness is one part of healing. It is always low of energy, and you don't have to be addicted to feel that. And it's always when we make a wrong, confused decision in our life. When we make the wrong and hurt people and everybody else around us, it is only because we feel low on energy. When we want to we want to feel superior to other people, we put somebody down, and many, many kind of forms of manipulations. And we don't do it individually. We also do it collectively as a nation. We invade other countries and steal, whether slaves or gold or oil, whatever it is. It's the same idea. It's always stealing and robbing others energies from others because we feel so low. So the most important thing always in life is to learn to reconnect again with the divinity in us, where that is a source, that's a spring, the wellspring, where there is energy always waiting for us.
Course creators, say goodbye to intimidating software and eliminate multiple subscriptions and say hello to Backbone. Backbone helps course creators thrive with their all-in-one, easy-to-use sales and marketing platform. Backbone gives you all your automation in one place to capture, nurture, and turn more leads into customers. With Backbone, you get unlimited courses, membership sites, funnels, landing pages, surveys, and forms with our easy-to-use drag-and-drop features. That's not all. Backbone provides a full CRM and pipeline management, two-way SMS, workflow automations, call tracking, full analytics, built-in AI, 24/7 support, and so much more. Stop paying for multiple tools and put more money in your pocket with Backbone. Just go to backbonelms.io now to get your free 14-day trial. Backbone supports letthemlive.org to help defend the defenseless by donating 5% of each subscription every month. Jump over to backbonelms.io now to start your free trial today.
One thing that I kind of still am a little confused on, I think basically because of the background that I have and, the beliefs I had instilled in me for so long, that I want to maybe ask you about, because I'm hoping that you can give me an insight here. There's a lot of people out there that are talking about, Christ consciousness or God within and those kind of things. Like, how would you really define that? Because I believe we are all connected, and I believe that obviously we do have God within us, but maybe can you help me understand that a little better and my listeners? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Yeah, sure. From my teaching, As I said earlier, Christ was very specific. We didn't come from the earth and walked ourselves slow to heaven. We came from heaven, from the prodigal son, and fell down, and now we have to return, which means that originally we all were strong, divine cosmic beings, each one of us. And we over time have lost that. So that divine cosmic being and essence of that is always in us. That always will be unchanged. That is in us. But meanwhile, we all have burdened our soul. We have created karma. We have to undo our karma through reincarnations until we are pure again. We have to learn to forgive and make amends wherever we can. But in us is the pure essence, which we call the God spark. It's close to the soul.
There we go.
Pituitary gland close there. We also have the Christ spark. Now, the Christ spark is something very different, but it's a very powerful source. When Christ, over time, the human beings, we always have the 7 chakras, the energy centers turning. And there was, because of our negativities, these energy centers turned slower and slower and eventually would revolve back into the opposite direction. That would have been the moment when all of creation would have been undone. And to stop that, Christ came to earth as Jesus, and when he died, he put the Christ spark in every soul of the lower purification spheres and of every human being. That little Christ spark is close to our heart, in the fourth chakra, and that spark stops the further degeneration of our energy centers. We can't go deeper. We cannot now. Creation cannot be undone. And this is also the redemption spark and also the spark to transform. So basically what he said in his teaching, bring me your troubles, bring me forgive, and so on, I will transform it for you. But he did not say, I died, so take your sins away. That would be foolish, because then you wouldn't have learned anything. We have to undo our mistakes by forgiveness, and we have to truly feel remorse for it. And when that happens, Christ can, in the spark, to change that energy into positive energy, the negative positive into positive energy. So we have to do a bit of work here as well. We just can't say, oh, I'm a Christian, I believe Christ saved me, thus I come into heaven. No. That never made
a lot of sense to me.
But a lot of people are taught that way, and a lot of people
yeah.
Now, I was very fortunate for when I started off as a young person as well, I was doubting the religious teachings already very early. So I started a spiritual path, and I went with 𝐂𝐥𝐿 and many different paths. And over the last 40 years, I came into contact with this very deep cosmic teaching by Christ, as they are given to us in today's language through an emissary of light. Her name is Gabriele, and she has, her books are, there are all these blue books in my background here, and she has written many of these books. And you won't find her on the internet because she doesn't want any she doesn't want to have any personality cult done onto her. It's only the mission, because the message is here, which Christ says, it is only a path between you and me, God. There is no organization, no church. We have no teachers, nothing to join. So this is the main reason for these books. If anybody is interested to find this inner path directly to divinity, to Christ or to God, without any outside structures.
I've always believed that 100%. It never made sense that you got to go tell some other man of the flesh, your mistakes and your problems and your sins, and that's between me and my God. That's it. I've always felt very strongly about that. Yeah.
Well, you are, I wouldn't say fortunate, because that's not the case, but you went to a tremendous serious what is the word? Not tragedy,
trials.
Trials, trials, the word I'm looking for. Thank you. Which of course made you realize these things. Many are not going through these trials, and they live easily a superficial life, and they take whatever has been given to them. We have to question what were given to us by our family. Much of it is good. Not everything is wrong, but we have to make our own decision. Is this right for me right now?
Totally agree. Yeah, it's it's a crazy time we're living in, and I'm just, I'm grateful that I have been asking those questions. I kind of chuckle with my wife sometimes, because I was the guy, I always hated school, but But the last three and a half years, all I've been doing is just studying and trying to learn and, and grow that one-to-one relationship with God. That's really what I'm focused on doing. And I feel like we're just so lost, as a world, if you will. And, we've forgotten what's important. And, it doesn't matter if you're trying to overcome addiction or trying to be successful in business or, your relationships, whatever it is, without that piece of the puzzle, I think we're just making it so much more difficult than, having that help from God. Because this is how crazy my thoughts got. I remember leaving an aftercare meeting after I'd gotten sober, and on Thursday nights, your family could come. So my parents came often. My wife always came. And one night, I'm still active in my church, and my parents are very, very active. And as we were walking to our cars, my dad asked me, are you praying at all? And, I said, well, no, why would he listen to me? But that is such a silly thought, because now as a father of 5 kids, and there's nothing any of my kids could ever do that would make me not listen to them or want to help them, Right. And it's just amazing how you get so screwed up in your thoughts because of guilt and shame and things like that, when it's just totally backwards. That's really when you need it the most.
Yeah, to reconnect again. Yeah, that's very important. Yeah. And unfortunately, many people can only really do this when they hit rock bottom, that they turn around like the prodigal son and says, this doesn't work for me. I have to go back home. Yeah. But a lot of people can do it earlier and can, if they recognize it soon enough. And so I've been doing this for the last 10 years. I've been drawing very short videos of 5 or 10 minutes, which you mentioned earlier, where I visually show the spiritual laws which are given to us. And I think that helped me always to understand it. I need to see how part A fits to part B and to put it together. I can't read it. I have to see it visually. And I do this for myself, and it makes it very clear. And I always remember also Einstein's famous words that says, if you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, you probably haven't understood it yourself. So my videos are very simple, very straightforward. There's no mystery in here. And a lot of people found that very helpful. When you see visually how, for instance, karma works or reincarnation works, and how the law of whatever law works, a law of attraction, it makes a big difference than if you just read about it or hear about it. Absolutely. So I invite anybody who wishes to look at them, go to lifeexplained.com or to go to YouTube channel Hans Wilhelm or type in my name, and immediately it will come up. I think you will find it very interesting to see the spiritual laws, which are eternal laws, on which we have to live and which we have to know, and which are often not taught in churches and religious organizations, are here to help and assist us to make this a more successful life for ourselves and everybody around us.
That is so true, and I'll have both of those in the show notes, folks. So if you're driving or unable to write that down, don't worry about it. You'll be able to find that underneath the video. As we first connected, we kind of had some miscommunication due to a bad link that I sent you. And that actually worked out for me in a very positive way, because for those listening, the link I sent him showed a podcast that wasn't mine, that showed more things due to violence and things like that. And so Hans responded to me and, basically came down to, there's really not much love here, which it really opened my eyes up to the way I look at things, because I often do say that, we need more love and light in this world, but yet saying it's one thing, but focusing on it and trying to have more of that in your heart that you're projecting out is a totally different thing. And because of that interaction that we had, it really brought that, to the fore of my thinking and my awareness, to where it's, I realized, hey, I just can't say that. I've got to really try to embrace that and be part of that, because I believe that, not only did we push God out of our lives and out of our schools and everything else, but that love is, you know, gone in so many ways because of such division that's created as well.
Anything what we do, love is the only way forward.
Yep.
Everything what we do, love is the only way forward. And it's of course not the human love between two people. If we talk
Right.
about the unconditional, unlimited, all-inclusive and selfless love, the divine love. And you are doing this also with your videos, for instance. And I think I'm not totally familiar with the 12-step program because I haven't been in it, but I know that I think one of them is also to be of service to others. And I think that is a very key element, because the moment we give to others, we are no longer feeling the lack. It's very interesting, because we allow now suddenly some energy, hopefully divine energy, good energy, to flow through us and to help someone else. And you do this with your videos and help other people. So by putting our own need and our own lack aside and says, what can I contribute? And there is always something we can give. Even if we think we are very poor and very sick and whatever, there's always something. If it's just time to be with somebody, to listen to somebody, that's a giving. And whenever we do this giving, this sharing, this serving, because the highest form of love is service. And when we do service to others in whatever form, that is another practical way how we will not go out and crave for energy from other sources, because we are giving from a state of abundance, from a state of having and sharing, which is a very different energy.
Oh yeah. I mean, you can feel it. I often, you know, I've said it many a times, there's nothing that makes me feel better, no amount of money, nothing, than truly serving someone and seeing that it's impacting them in a positive way. I mean, there's just nothing that replaces that.
Having 5 children or 5 daughters, that of course it doesn't give you much else to do. I mean, they're already, it's in the family, it starts at home.
Yeah. Yeah. What are some, you know, for people that maybe this is a little bit newer to the, you know, the inner work or the things to do to try to raise your, you know, vibration? We obviously talked about one very most important one right there, but what are some things that people could do, you know, whether it be reading, meditations, you know, what things would you suggest that would help people, you know, with their journey on, you know, connecting to source and raising their vibration spiritually?
Well, you mentioned meditation. Yeah, I do have on my videos, there's also some meditations there. A guided meditation. One is Enter the Light, which is basically what we talk about, to go back to this divinity light, to connect with it and let the light flood through you and fill you up. And that I would always recommend. But I think the very practical day-to-day thing, which I find is very important in today's political situation here, avoiding all the negative TV and media messages, which we are bombarded with, negative news from morning to day. Our ego may love to feed on it because, oh, I know something new, somebody else did something bad to someone else, etc. Let me quickly share it with someone else. It's an ego high. It comes from emptiness. It does come from total confusion. Really be extremely careful what you absorb, because everything what we absorb on videos or video games or newscasts or Twitter or whatever it is, and if it is not pro-life, creating pro-life, pro-love, it is the opposite and it harms us. It leaves a message in ourselves. And you know, I've got a video on anger and so on. Very simple. If you just watch a negative television show, the anger immediately triggers something off in us, and suddenly we become more angry because we still have unresolved old anger in us. And that immediately, like attracts like, brings this old anger up again. And suddenly I get out of my chair, I shout to my wife, etc. I kick the dog and so on. It is a chain reaction just by having watched a negative TV program and letting reignite an old program in me. So I think when you speak about what can we do, meditation is for some people, well, that's a real way out. But one other thing we can do is be very, very, very selective what you consume. If you are careful with your food of what you are eating, Why not also be that with your eyes, what you watch and what you will look and etc. And find out also, why am I watching these horrible things? Why? What does it give me? It does give you a rush, similar like a drug. Yes. But do you really feel better after that? Do you not even feel angry? Do you not share your anger maybe with others of similar, who have similar feelings? And so I think one of the important things is here to be very discerning of what we consume, not only on the food, but also on social media and television.
Oh, yeah. I often say that, like you said, that can be a drug. I mean, I know people that sit in front of the TV 4 or 5 hours all evening, every night in and night out. And, I call it the tell of vision. That's what it's doing, it's so yeah, so true. We have to be important. We have to be very careful of what we are. I'm not opposed to entertainment, but at the same time, we have to pay attention, because I really think that's, whether it be TV, whether it be sports, whatever entertainment people enjoy. And like I say, I don't have a problem with a little entertainment here and there, but, we get so into those things that we've forgotten about who we are and the important things that really matter. And it's totally been distracting. And I think that's what's allowed us as a nation, to get to the place that we're in right now.
The polarization. Yes,
Yeah.
I fully agree. Yeah, you have to be very careful of all these things. You're absolutely right. Yeah, so that would be a very practical thing to really think about it, because everything what we think and what we absorb is stored in ourselves, in our soul, in our body, and so on, continuously. Everything stays with us in a way, particularly when we do it repeatedly. Every thought which we repeatedly think is stored in our aura, then in our soul. And when the soul is too shaded with too many negativities, the energy flow cannot go through our body. And then the next step is illnesses, because certain parts of our body don't get the life force anymore. It's a very simple, straightforward procedure, and I illustrate it in my videos as well. So we must be very careful, because these negative thoughts, which are not necessarily ours, can really do a lot of harm to us. When I say they are not ours necessarily, is we think of something like 50 to 70,000 thoughts a day, but most of them are repeated thoughts we have had 1,000 times. And many of them are not ours, because thoughts are living entities. They float around us, either the one we send out or from other people. And if there is something in us which is the same vibration as that thought can attach itself to ourselves and make our thinking stronger and stronger. So also when we have a negative thought, for instance, about a person, very critical and so on, other negative thoughts in the vicinity can come and cling to it and make it bigger, make it a big negative bubble. So if we wish unwell for another person, let's say we have a co-worker and we wish him unwell, we wish him something bad happens to him and so on, we're really angry with that person. That negative energy is a thought pattern that goes to that person. Now, if the person has similar vibrational thoughts in himself, it will cling to it. But if a person does not have negative in it, it will not. But the moment it clings to it, it can then develop in that person bigger and bigger and bigger. And maybe that person becomes so angry and does something horrific to maybe to his wife or whatever, to somebody close by. And that crime, we are co-responsible to, because we were the initiator of that thought. So we are co-responsible. We are tied to that person until the deed is forgiven and eliminated. So all these things are very, very important. And when you see that in my videos, it makes a lot of sense, because we speak about vagabond thoughts, which can easily attach themselves to ourselves, and we send them out all the time. So it's important to watch our thoughts and make sure that there are less and less negative self-pity, etc., and based on imagined emptiness.
Interesting. Yeah. You mentioned earlier, like attracts like, and that goes to the, there's a lot of people out there these days that are talking about, that do talk about, our thoughts, and, the energy creates basically the things that we have in our life. And, I've been a big believer of that. And so for those listening, and, you talk about those negative thoughts, after I went through, my situation with prison, the reason I started this podcast was it was about 8 years after I got out of prison in 2010 that I sat in a pretty negative space and somewhat of a victim mentality. I'd been very successful before. I kind of, I used excuses and forgot who I was. I didn't have the ability to have the business that I used to have anymore. And I know without a doubt that that's why I stayed stuck for so long, until I literally changed my focus and my mindset and paid attention to those thoughts and would catch them, and then literally started to reprogram my mind, if you will, by things that I would do, certain mantras that I would say to kind of help myself, keep focused. Then everything literally started to shift.
Yeah. So what was the main teachings, or what was the main thing which initiated your sudden realization that, wow, it's my thoughts which created a lot of the negative, not everything around me?
Yeah, well, I grew up in a home with a dad who, was very successful, and he was always doing personal development and things like that. And so I was aware of some of those things. But as I was very successful, and then I lose everything, go to prison, come out, and when you're in there, you're telling yourself, man, I would work at McDonald's tomorrow if I could get out of here, and so your perspective flips really quickly. And you also realize how much you took for granted and how you actually hurt the ones closest to you, not intentionally, but because you take them for granted, you hurt them the most. The people you love the most, you hurt the most, which is really messed up. But as I, was trying to figure out what to do and get back into business, and it was really interesting, because you forget what you did and the work that you put in to get where you had gotten. And it seemed like it was overnight, even though it took 5-7 years, at least, for me to build the business that I had. And so I think, I always thought I could hire the right person and they would make it happen. But I finally realized no one's coming to save me. I have got to figure this out on my own, and some of it could have been, even, if I'm being honest, laziness, or due to being a little bit down, lacking that energy, making it that much harder to have the drive to do what I knew I needed to do. Because I didn't learn anything new as far as what it takes to win, if you will, whatever area of life. I'm talking in general, everything, not just business. But I had to realize that until I was willing to invest in myself and my mindset, basically, then I was going to stay where I was at. Yeah. And so I think what I can see now is, because of the little things that I would start to do, and one I've talked about many times on this podcast, is what I call a conscious self-creation statement, where I would write down, I have this, I am that. And I literally memorized it, and I said that every single day. And within 2 years, everything that was in that, other than 2 things, had manifested in my life. And because of that, and other little habits I was doing, whether it was things I read, people I was around, events I would go to, I can now see that all relates to what we've been talking about, is that energy, because it helped me shift it rather than stay at that lower vibration that I was keeping myself stuck at.
Yeah.
And there's no doubt it works. It's proven.
Yeah. The law of attraction is a very powerful law. And it's not only on the stuff we may accomplish in this world, in this life and so on. It also applies, where will we go after this life? We are energy bodies. We spoke about at the beginning, it's all energy. And of course, like attracts like. And otherwise, our energy, our soul energy, will be attracted to the realm in the afterlife that is similar to our own. So we have it all in our own hand, where to determine where we will be after this earth life, by raising our energy and raising our awareness, and also, most important, I think, as we mentioned earlier, the connection with divinity.
Yeah, that's what your videos really got me understanding. And so I want to do what I can to, get myself to the highest level I possibly can. For those that are listening that might think some of this is a little woo-woo or whatever you want to call it, I thought it was very interesting. I was reading on your website yesterday, and do you mind sharing a little bit about the story of, your father and what you said to him when he wasn't able to speak, but you felt he definitely understood you, and then some event, I don't know how many years later, that, you went to, and someone came and communicated to you what message your father had told that gentleman?
Yeah, it was a while ago when my father was dying, and we were with him, and he was not believing in life after death. He was quite comfortable with the idea that life for him would be over. He couldn't speak, so I told him, well, that just in case life continues, these are the probably 10 things which you may experience. So don't be surprised if suddenly somebody comes to you and all this kind of thing. So just go with it. And when I was finished, he sort of smiled a little bit, says, all right, that's your belief, I know better. Anyway, totally forgot about it. And then 5 years later, I was at a book signing when somebody came up to me and says, oh, here's your father just came into the room. He was a medium, a well-known medium, and just told me that to go to this young man. I was young then. And he says, tell him that whatever I've told him before death is absolutely true. He was absolutely, and he wants to thank me wholeheartedly. And then he said something more important. He says, I am now working, or I'm at the receiving end of the people who pass over, so all the souls who die. And I see total confusion. People don't know even that they're dead, or what to expect. So I see so much confusion here. Please go and write some books about what you know to make more people aware of it. Well, I decided not to do books. I decided to do videos, as I mentioned earlier. So because I wanted to reach young people. A lot of old people are so stuck, you can't, they don't want to change. And it's the young people who I would like to touch. And when I started my YouTube, there was no TikTok. So it was immediately a big success. And I reach out to the young people. And if somebody believes it or not, I have no interest to convince anybody. I merely offer what works for me, because the teachings which I share, I try to apply in my life as well, as much as possible. I know it works. So I share that. It says, if you find it worthwhile, great. If not, also great. I have no interest in convincing anybody. And as I said earlier, there is no organization to join, nothing to join. It's just only very simple, straightforward, divine teachings, cosmic teachings, which the world has never had in this clarity. My teacher Gabriele said one thing is, God is ingenious simplicity. And this is so powerful, because when you see my videos, it's so easy to understand. When you study a lot of so-called spiritual path or New Age path or esoteric paths, they can be extremely complicated, and you have to read it 3 times because you think I need it. This one now is straightforward. There is no but and if. It is straightforward. And I like this, the clarity, the intelligence behind it all.
Absolutely. And that's one thing that I struggled with, those things that are harder to understand, even to me, even scripture, but like you say, your videos, man, they are so on point and so simple to follow, and they're short and concise. So yeah, I've told a lot of people about them, and I'm going to continue to, because they are fantastic. Well, let me ask you this. Obviously you studied a ton, I think 40 plus years, on these types of topics. Is it also fair to say, and I don't know the right word, but do you feel that you've channeled any of this stuff? Or, I mean, I think you're obviously called to do what you're doing, and your dad, is the one that kind of pushed you, it sounds like, a little bit. But I mean, I believe you definitely have a gift. I mean, there's nothing out there that I've ever come across like it, and that is so simple and easy to understand.
No, the simplicity and clarity comes directly from divinity. It doesn't come from me. I do not channel. I believe we all can have the word of God in us, and there may be messages which we can hear. Some of us can hear, some of us can see when we go within. But I strongly believe that these messages are only meant for myself, and they're not meant for anybody else. Whilst the theory that I share here comes from angelic beings, from Christ, from God directly, it's a totally different thing, and it's meant for everyone. But my message, which I may receive in meditation or in prayer, is meant for myself, and that's what I write down sometimes afterwards, whatever the message was. But it's meant for me. And I also believe for most people who think you are channelers, and there are many people who are channelers, and fine, and I'm not judging that, but for the most part, I think the message was meant for them personally.
Gotcha.
And not necessarily to other people, but our ego can easily say, oh, I can channel it. Oh my God, I've got somebody speaking through me. But do we know who is speaking through us? We don't know.
Yeah, we
I am
don't.
Christ. And oh, look, Christ is speaking through me. But it could be definitely some kind of make-believe Christ who just wants to use it. So we don't know who is coming through us. Therefore, I would say, be careful with channeling. If you have a message within yourself coming up, and it comes from divine source, and it's meant for you.
That's an excellent point, because yeah, you could see that out there, some of these communities today with a lot of these people, and like you say, they don't know. We don't know. There's a lot,
Right.
The greatest deceiver out there could, it's hard to know when you're being deceived, man. It's it's a very difficult situation, especially right now. But well, Hans, this has just been such a pleasure, man. I really, really appreciate you and your time. Is there anything else that you'd like to leave with the audience before we wrap up?
Well, one thing, love is the only way forward. Remember that. And always when you feel low in energy, we didn't touch on that much, but it is always feel grateful for everything in your life. The moment we get away from feeling the lack, change over to gratefulness, we are already in the feeling of abundance, and the life shifts around. When we feel deep gratefulness, we usually don't need drugs or anything else. We are really grateful and enjoy the moment, because the happiness is a result of gratefulness. And and whenever there is a chance, sit down and says, oh my God, I have a computer. Millions of people don't have it. I have hands. I can write with simple things which we take for granted. And there are thousands of people who do not have that. We are so gifted. And when we really focus on all the amazing things which we have, even if we don't have much on worldly possessions, but if we have a body, we have a mind to think, we can speak with somebody else. I mean, these are all gifts to bring us all home.
Oh, that's so great. Well, man, thanks so much, and look forward to continuing to learn from your videos and the books you recommend on your site. I've got 3 that have already shown up to my house, and 4 other ebooks downloaded. So I've got a bunch to continue to read and learn. It's fascinating stuff, but it's just, to me, it makes total sense. And so thank you for, not only being here, but for the information that you've put out to share with everybody else.
Steve, thank you for having invited me. It was an honor and pleasure. And I wish you well, and also your audience well.
Hey, thank you so much, and take care. We'll talk to you soon.
Great.
Okay, bye-bye.